So friends, this is truly a reflections of Abdul-Baha's life. Those where he says, look at me, and this is how his life was. And this is what we want to be like. We all want to be like Abdul-Baha. We cannot be Abdul-Baha, but our aim is to be Abdul-Baha-like. And this requires thought, daily action, and reflection. And it starts with a reflection on the life of Abdul-Baha. A true reflection that results in action. True reflection always results in action. And a profound reflection that the House of Justice has asked us to make is life-changing. It is grounded in understanding and action. And that action will only come when we deeply reflect, understand, internalize, and do something. And this is the aim of these 2 days, to really for us to reflect on the life of Abdul-Baha, as you have been doing, and then act. How often was it that Abdul-Baha and the Master told us that if we claim to be the followers of light, we must prove this by action. We express our love for Abdul-Baha through our acts of service. Acts of service for which we expect no name or fame. It's done in complete servitude, Abdul-Baha-like. And the deed itself is the reward. There are many stories about Abdul-Baha, but one that some of you might have heard me repeat, but I want to repeat it once again because it helps our thoughts. It helps us think about Abdul-Baha in our journey to be Abdul-Baha-like. It is a story that's told by Mr. Ziaullah Wujdani, who was a pioneer in South America, who now lives in Adelaide. He says that in my youth, in 1970s in Argentina, in the company of a local friend, we set out on a teaching trip to a far-flung region. We left with the intention to teach and with no particular destination in mind. We drove for many hours, he says, on rough roads. And when we were in much need of a break and some refreshment, we came to a little restaurant on the side of the road. And impromptu, we stopped. By now, it was late in the afternoon and the restaurant was not crowded, it was quiet. After being served by a young boy and a girl, they came and joined us at our table. And we took the opportunity to tell them about the faith, as was our intention. We had with us, he says, a photo album with pictures of Baha'i holy places and the Holy Land. And we began to turn these pages and show them the photos, speaking of the various holy places and their importance. He says that at this time, an old man with a walking aid came out of a house which was connected to the restaurant and joined us. After a few minutes, he politely asked about who we were, where were we going, because this was quite a faraway place, what was the object of our travels, and so forth. And we took the opportunity, he says, to show him the photos as well. And he looked at the photos and listened to us. Clearly, he was fascinated and interested in the pictures of Haifa and Akka, but said very little. The last photo in the album was a portrait of Abdul-Baha. When the old man saw this photo, he took the album from my hand, he says, and held the photo close and looked at the picture with great intent for some time. Didn't say a word though. And then after maybe a minute or two, he asked, who is he? I told him it was Abdul-Baha. And then there was a pause. He said, is he called by any other name? I said, yes, Abbas. There was another pause. And then he repeated for a few times the name Abbas, Abbas, Abbas. And then he said, inquiring, Abbas Effendi? I said, yes. By this time, his eyes had welled up. He held the picture close to his chest and said, "This is my Lord Abbas Effendi, the master of Akka." He got up and said, "Please join me. This table is not worthy and deserving of your visit. Please join me." As he walked towards the house and took us in, he served us with much love. And then he said, "I am Palestinian. During World War I lived in Akka as a young boy. My mother died and my father was sick, and we lived in poverty without food to eat. Like many other children and adults in Akka who lived in absolute poverty, we would walk every day to Haifa from Akka. And then this blessed man, Abbas Effendi, would cook food and serve us with his own blessed hands. And this was the only sustenance we received on a daily basis." He goes on to say that one day I was extremely hungry. I ate my food in much haste and then joined the food line again. The beloved master, while serving me with a smile, said, "You must be really hungry that you've come for a second helping." I said, "Dear master, this food is not for me. It is for my father who is sick and hungry at home." Then the master took a separate container and filled it with food for my father. He says that was what happened from then on every day. Every day, a separate container was ready for me, and I always carried back this for my father. After the war and the death of my father, Abbas Effendi, he says, was my only protector and help. He was my everything and everyone. Eventually, a ship from Europe arrived. They photographed the many orphans and lonely children, among whom I was one, and got us passports. This was our opportunity to leave Akka for a better life. But he says, I didn't want to leave. I was distressed and crying. The master wiped my tears and said, "Don't cry. You will go to a better place where you will have food, education, and clothing." I said, "But master, you won't be there. I don't want to be separated from you." And then he made me a promise, he says. He said, "You will see me again. Trust in God and take this opportunity to start a new life." I only left, he says, because Abbas Effendi promised me that I will see him again. And as I had complete faith in what he said, what he told me, I left. On the day we left Akka, only Abbas Effendi was at the shipyard to say goodbye to us. He was the only hope and care for us destitute children. There was no one else. He goes on to share many other anecdotes and stories. He then says, "For years, I've been waiting to see Abbas Effendi again, as he promised. Today, you have fulfilled this yearning in my heart."